Back to you, Gavin Martin. Just before the break with the word for today, you were talking about the foreign aid budget. There's been some significant changes there. What are the things that you've gleaned from what the Treasurer announced?
Yeah, similar to the way that they've made some savings with family tax benefits by freezing the increase in the payments, they're applying a similar approach to the foreign aid budget. So they're limiting it, I think it was to $5.5 billion for the next couple of years, and then they'll increase it with the consumer price index, the inflation, rather than linking it to our total revenue. And so the whole effect of that is that the aid budget is reducing over time. And I guess that's a concern as we try to look out for those people around the world, not just locally in Australia, who are at most disadvantaged. But then, similar to what we've been talking about before, I've spoken to someone who works in the area of aid, and he's seen more of those niche projects rather than the massive projects achieving a lot better outcomes. So perhaps we could actually target the money better, and potentially Christian organisations could do that in a more nimble and effective way.
I have gleaned a few comments that have come from organisations like the Micah Challenge. This is an organisation that's been interested in the implementation of those Millennium Development Goals, and every time there is a cut to foreign aid, Micah Challenge is usually first one on the bandwagon to say, hey, this is not good enough, because seriously, cutting our foreign aid when we are such a wealthy nation, and the commitments that have been made in years gone by to actually meet those Millennium Development Goals, which is all about reducing or even eliminating poverty around the world. When we hear of cuts to foreign aid, Rod St Hill, what are your thoughts when it comes to a Christian worldview being applied to these things?
Well, actually, I probably won't make myself very popular with some organisations, but I'm not too worried about that, because we actually know that foreign aid per se doesn't do a lot of good. Foreign aid was supposed to deal with the poverty problem 50 years ago, and it has. What we do know, however, is that extreme poverty has been more than halved in the low-income countries between 1990 and 2000, and even when you allow for population growth, the actual number of people living in extreme poverty has fallen by 700 million in that period of time. And that is the one millennial goal that has actually already been met long before 2015. There are three reasons why that tack on poverty has been so successful over the last 20 to 30. One is there has been investment in education. Another is there has been investment in health, and a healthy, educated population helps with economic growth and development. But the other reason, and this accounts for 50 to 60% of the improvement, is that sustainable paid employment has been created by businesses. And so the activity of business in this, and we're talking about micro businesses, they're businesses that employ fewer than 10 people in the main. They've created these jobs. And when new jobs are created, that assists families. It makes it a lot easier to maintain the family unit. When mum and dad have jobs, paid, secure jobs, they don't have the same pressure to sell their children into slavery. Communities stay together, so there's a community development aspect. And furthermore, when you've got stable communities, that actually makes it easier to achieve the big macroeconomic objectives of economic development and growth. We do know, however, that although government aid doesn't do very much at all, there are some particular programs, and there's been a very substantial study done of the work of Compassion, for example, and we do now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that programs of that type break the poverty cycle. We do know from research done with organisations like Opportunity International, an Australian organisation, that coupling some training with finance can also break the poverty cycle. I think it's very important for us to note, however, that it is not handouts that break the poverty cycle, and in most cases, the poor in the low-income nations, they don't want a handout, they want a hand up, because they're entrepreneurial, they want to work, they're not stupid, they might not be well educated, but they're not stupid people. And we know now empirically that we can reduce poverty through business. We know that beyond the shadow of a doubt.
I think it would be interesting for our conversation if we had a breakdown of how that foreign aid money was spent, because when there are cuts, many will agree with you about those areas of breaking poverty cycles coming down to education and those micro businesses that are helping there. But that foreign aid money that is spent when it comes to vaccinations of people against dreadfully dangerous diseases and the provision of clean water, those are the things that I think we might all hope are not going to be affected by cuts in our foreign aid budget, because those are the things where people's lives dramatically and specifically focused, that lives can be saved if we actually help out in those areas of vaccination.